Hello everyone. We made it to another Wednesday. We're surviving, not thriving, but here we are. Today I want to talk about books that I own, books that are on my shelf that I am scared to read, and the various reasons I'm scared to read them. So without further ado, let's get started. So the first two books that I own that I want to start with are A Little Life and Name of the Wind. I started with these because I do own the physical copies of these books, but they are currently on my boyfriend's shelf because my new method is to buy books and then keep them in my boyfriend's house because I don't have any more room on my shelves. And I know this might sound like it's indicative of a book shopping problem, because it probably is. Either way, they're not with me, they're at my boyfriend's house, but these are two of the books that I'm pretty nervous to pick up. Let's start with A Little Life. This is one that I think people either love or hate. I scrolled through all the Goodreads reviews. Not all, that would take me a very long time, but I did scroll through a number of the reviews, and honestly it seems like people are giving it either 1 star or 5 stars for the exact same reason, which is that this book made them miserable. So what I gather is that when I read this book, I'm either going to just continuously cry like ugly tears or chuck it at a wall and say that it's way too depressing. I do happen to like depressing books. Maybe it's the Scorpio in me, maybe I'm just a masochist, maybe it's a mix of both, but either way, this is probably one that I'm going to try reading this year. Keyword try. I'm gonna try reading it over the summer maybe, because I won't be working and I won't have to deal with any other obligations, because I feel like this is one that's going to require like all of my brain power and emotional capacity. In terms of Name of the Wind, this is one that I have heard good things about as well. It's a pretty chunky fantasy, and I think that's the only thing you need to know in terms of why I'm nervous to read it. Speaking of chunky fantasies, this is one I'm nervous to read as well. So this is Brandon Sanderson's Oathbringer. It's the third in the Way of Kings series. I don't know if that's, no, the Stormlight Archives is the name of the series. I am nervous to read it, not because of like the difficulty in reading it, but because I feel like there was so much that happened in the first two books that I'm gonna have difficulty remembering like who the characters are and what happened, and I will probably have to read a refresher of books 1 and 2 before I dive into book 3. But I love Brandon Sanderson, I love his fantasy writing, I love his world building and his characters, and I know I'm going to really like this one. I just need to just start it. I just need to read a summary of the first 2 books and start it. Rip it off like a band-aid. I guess I need to do that for all the books in this video. That's kind of the point of why I'm scared to read these. I'm also nervous about picking this one up, Children of Dune. It's the 3rd book in the Dune series. I've read books 1 and 2, and book 2 was certainly easier to digest than book 1. A, because it was shorter, B, because I was familiar with the language and the world, and those are the main 2 reasons. But this one, kind of for the same reason I'm nervous about reading the 3rd book in the Stormlight Archive. With this one, it's again just a nervousness about not remembering like where the characters left off. I also know that this is a very philosophical series in addition to being a regular sci-fi, and honestly those 2 genres are probably the hardest for me to read in terms of trying to intake it and figuring out like the themes in the book and things like that. So we'll see how I do with this and when I pick it up, if I even decide to. So yeah, I think I do at some point want to finish the entire series, but I'm just working through it incredibly slowly. I also get really nervous when books have a lot of hype surrounding them, and this is definitely one of them. This is Legendborn. I actually bought this one at the LA Times Book Festival because I told myself I wasn't going to buy any books because I certainly don't need to, but then I caved and told myself I could buy one, and this was the one that I chose. I think that I've never seen a negative review for this one on Bookstagram, and I've seen fan art for this one, literally like only 4 and 5 star reviews on it on Bookstagram. So it is very hyped, it appears, but I also hope that it's hyped for good reason. Speaking of hyped, Book Lovers by Emily Henry. Not only was I hesitant to dive into this one because of how hyped it was, but also because I love Emily Henry's other books, Beach Read and People We Meet on Vacation, and I really did not want this one to disappoint me. I have some close friends on Bookstagram who I messaged and they told me why they didn't like it, but then I also have other close friends who told me why they loved it. So I've seen a spectrum of reviews on this one, and as the lying liar I am, I actually have started this one, but I was nervous to get into it because of that spectrum of reviews. To be fair, it did take me a while to get into this one, probably about 70 to 80 pages, but I'm about halfway through, or just shy of halfway through, and I am now loving it. It's really hard to put down now, and I'm finally starting to get a sense that the story is coming together. What else am I nervous to read, you ask? All of the classics on my shelf. So I think that speaks for itself. I know that classics can be intimidating to crack open. I usually love classics when I read them, with the exception of Dracula, which I really didn't enjoy at all, and Ethan Frome, I don't know how you pronounce it, but I didn't much like that one either. But in general, I am a fan of classics. I love getting lost in the writing and the world and following the themes of the story. But I haven't been in like a classic book reading mood in a while. You know, you really have to be in the mood to read a classic. You can't just roll out of bed and decide to pick one up, you know? And I haven't really been inspired to pick any of these up lately. But when I am, these are the ones I'm going to read. We got A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens. I've read a few of his works, including Oliver Twist and A Christmas Carol, both of which I love. So we'll see how I feel about this one. I know it was required reading for half of my class, and the other half was something that I read, which I now don't remember, but I was not part of the half of the class that read this one, so I'm out of the loop, so to speak. I also have Les Miserables. I read Victor Hugo's book, The Hunchback of Notre Dame, and did he write The Three Musketeers? No, that was Dumas. Yeah, so I read his book, The Hunchback of Notre Dame, and it was a little bit lengthy and very descriptive. I feel like it probably could be 200 pages shorter and it would be totally fine. But nevertheless, this is something that I do kind of have an interest in reading. Obviously, otherwise I wouldn't have bought it. But I just haven't really been in the mood to pick it up. But I got these because I just love how old and worn they are. Listen to this, ready? Like, that crack is so satisfying to hear. For some reason, I also like the water damage. Like, I like the way that it makes the pages feel, because I'm a psychopath, I guess. Yeah, we'll read that one day. Maybe not today. Not today, not tomorrow, but one day. And I have one more classic here that, again, nervous to read. It's another Charles Dickens one, David Copperfield. At least it looks nice on my shelves while it's being unread. That's all I'm gonna say about that. Another category of books on my shelves that I'm nervous to read are nonfiction books. So some that I own that I haven't read yet are heavy. This one I am waiting to read with a buddy on Bookstagram, and How the Scots Invented the Modern World. I've owned this one for a while, like 2 years at this point, and this one I've owned since last year. I got it as a birthday present, and you know, when will I read them? Who knows? That's the question for the ages. Why am I nervous to read them? Because I feel like nonfiction requires a lot more like brain power to get through. I never know if I should take notes when I read a nonfiction, if I should like annotate, if I should tab, if I should like split between like the physical book and the audiobook, because sometimes that does help with nonfictions in particular. I mean, there are endless reasons why it takes me a while to pick up a nonfiction that's sitting on my shelf, and those are just a few. But again, it's just something I have to be in the mood for in order to read. I know I can do it, but when? You tell me. As a bonus, I wanted to give an honorable mention to 2 books. I actually saw these books in a Bookstagram post about like what to read based on your sign, I think it was. And the ones for Scorpio were The Grace Year and Boy Parts. I'm nervous to read them because I feel like I don't really embody a lot of the characteristics that people associate with Scorpios. Maybe I am a little bit closed off to others if I'm meeting them for the first time, but otherwise is. I don't really think I'm as crazy as people think Scorpios are. And if people believe that the target demographic for these books are the like crazy Scorpios that people have as a stereotype, then I don't know if I'm going to like them. But I figure it's worth giving them a try, and maybe I'll make a separate video on that too, depending on how much I have to say about those books. But otherwise, that's my ever-growing list of books I'm scared to read and why I'm scared to read them. So just pray for me and hope that one day I'll get to these. Ideally, I would get to them before I buy any more new books, but we all know that's a lie. So see you next week. The mailman's outside. Bye.